Hey guys, what's up? It's Sabhi here from Sabhi's Life. Welcome to another video. So in today's video, I will tell you how a family member can apply for Canadian permanent residence if they have got a brother and sister living in Canada, or parents or any other relative living in Canada as a permanent resident or Canadian citizen. How a family member can apply for Canada as a permanent residence. So what you need to do, just on google.com type immigration Canada, and the first website you see it here, this is the official website of Canada where you can apply for all different kinds of visas. So click onto this website link, and here you click onto menu and then click on immigration and citizenship, and here you click on immigrate, and here there are a lot of different options. For family, you need to click on family sponsorship, and here I will read some of the information for you. Family sponsorship: your relatives can live, study and work in Canada. If they become permanent residents of Canada, you can sponsor certain relatives to come to Canada if you are at least 18 years old and a Canadian citizen or person registered in Canada as an Indian under the Canadian Indian Act or permanent resident of Canada. Service and information: sponsor your spouse, partner or dependent children. Sponsor your relative, sponsor your adopted child. Immigration options for sponsored spouse or partner: sponsor your parents and grandparents. Visit your children or grandchildren. Help for spouse or partners who are experiencing abuse. Alright, so first click onto this one. Sponsor your spouse, partner or dependent children. Okay, about the process: if you are eligible, you can sponsor your spouse, partner or dependent children to become permanent resident of Canada. If you do, you must be able to support them financially. Make sure they don't need special assistance from the government. So who you can sponsor? So a person who is your relative living in Canada as a citizen, to that person this question is for, that who you can sponsor. You can sponsor your spouse, common law partner, conjugal partner or dependent children. Your spouse can be either sex, must be legally married to you, at least 18 years old. Your common law partner isn't legally married to you, can be either sex, is at least 18 years old, has been living with you for at least 12 consecutive months, meaning you have been living together continuously for 1 year in a conjugal relationship without any long periods apart. Any time spent away from each other should have been short, temporary. If you or your common law partner choose to end the relationship, we consider the relationship to be over. You will need to give proof of your common law relationship. Okay, your conjugal partner isn't legally married to you or in common law relationship with you, can be either sex, is at least 18 years old, has been in relationship with you for at least 1 year, lives outside Canada, can't live with you in their country or resident or marry you because of significant legal and immigration reasons such as their marital status. For example, they are still married to someone else in country where divorce isn't possible. Their sexual orientation, for example, you are in a same-sex relationship and same-sex relationships are not accepted, or same-sex marriage is illegal where they live. Persecution, for example, your relationship is between different religious group which is not accepted and they may be punished legally or socially. You will need to give proof that you could not live together or get married in your conjugal partner's country. For example, proof of refused long-term stays in each other's country. Dependent children. Children qualify as dependent if you meet both of these requirements. They are under 22 years old. They don't have a spouse, common law partner. Children 22 years old or older qualify as dependent if they meet both of these requirements. They are unable to financially support themselves because of mental or physical condition. They have depended on their parents or financial support since before the age of 22. With the exception of age, your dependent children must continue to meet this requirement until we finish processing your application. Use our online tools to check if child qualifies as a dependent. If they qualify as a dependent child, you can sponsor your child, your own child. If you are a Canadian citizen, your child may be a Canadian citizen even if they weren't born in Canada. You can't sponsor your child for permanent residence if they are Canadian citizen already. Check if your child is already a Canadian citizen. If you are sponsoring just your child without sponsoring your spouse or partner, you will name your child as the principal applicant in the application. You will have to show that other parents or legal guardian agrees to your child immigrating to Canada. See your checklist for that, for what you will need to provide. If the child you want to sponsor has a child of their own, your grandchild, you will include your grandchild as a dependent in the application. If you want to sponsor your adopted child or an orphan family member, following the instruction to sponsor your adopted child or orphan family member instead. Your spouse or partner and their child. If you are sponsoring your spouse or partner and a child, either their own child or child you have had together, you will name your spouse or partner as a principal applicant and the child as a dependent in the application. If the child you want to sponsor has a child of their own, you will include the grandchild as a dependent in the application. Eligibility of the people you are sponsoring. To show they meet the eligibility requirement, use your spouse, partner, dependent children, and their dependent children, if applicable, must be provided. All required forms and documents with their application. Any additional information we request during processing include medical exam, biometrics. You can't sponsor someone who is admissible to Canada. This means they are not allowed to come to Canada. All right, guys. Who can sponsor? So this is the information about who can sponsor. Now I click on next, how to apply. To apply to sponsor your spouse, partner, or child, there are two applications. You must apply to become a sponsor. Your spouse, partner, or child must apply for permanent residence. Send both their sponsorship and permanent residence application together at the same time. If you want to sponsor your adopted child or an orphan family member, follow the instruction to sponsor your adopted child instead. If you live in Quebec, find out the steps to take sponsor your spouse, partner, or child in Quebec. Click on this link and then you will be able to find the steps to sponsor a child who lives if you are from Quebec. Get the application package. The application package include the document checklist for you and the person you want to sponsor, forms you and the person you want to sponsor need to fill out, instruction guide to help you and your family member fill out the form correctly. Read the guide carefully before you complete the application form. The sponsorship application fee for processing your application can't be refunded. Make sure you are eligible to sponsor before you apply. You list all your family members. All the information on your application is true. Your application is complete. Helping your spouse, partner, child with their application. There are certain steps you need to complete if you want to prepare your family member's application for them. This would mean that you would be acting as their representative. Check on their application status. You have to request permission and provide the right forms with your application. Find out how to act as a representative. Access your family member's information by clicking onto this link. Pay your application fees. In most cases, your fees will include processing fees for you, the person you are sponsoring, and their dependent, the right of permanent residence fees, the biometric fees. If you have to pay your fees online, open a new tab. Biometric fees. In most cases, you may pay biometric fingerprints or photos fee when you submit your application. Otherwise, you may experience delays. The biometric fees covers the cost of collecting fingerprints and digital photos. Third party fee. Depending on your situation, you may need to pay third parties for your medical exam. A police certificate. The instruction guide can help you understand which fee applies to you. Submit your application. The mailing instructions are in the application guide. You may use a courier service to submit your application. If you want to, courier service will help you track your application. You can also use regular mail. Find out how long it will take to process your application. Click on this link and you will be able to find out that how long it's going to take. We will return your application to you if it's incomplete, fees are missing. Send us additional information during processing. During processing, we will ask the person you are sponsoring to submit their medical exam, police certificate. You need to include police certificate when you apply. You need them for the person being sponsored and each family member 18 or older who isn't already a Canadian citizen or permanent residence. Police certificate are generally valid for 1 year from the date they are issued. Depending on processing time, we may ask you for new certificates. Biometrics. When the biometric fee is paid, we will send your family member a letter asking them to give their biometric. Your family member must show this letter when they give their biometric. They have 30 days to give their biometric in person at their closest collection point. COVID-19 changes to biometric requirement and collection procedure. Temporary measures have been put into place for biometric requirement and collection procedure. Find out what to do for your biometric clicking onto this link. We will send instruction and let your family members know how much time they have to send us this information. You must tell us of any change of circumstances such as birth or adoption of a children, marriage or divorce or separation, death of an applicant or a dependent. Okay, next, after you apply. Due to mailing delays used by COVID-19, we will now return incomplete application by email. If you have made a digital copy, otherwise, we will mail it back to you. Be sure to check the email you gave us when you submit. If you are waiting to hear about your application or think there may be form or document missing, on this page, processing your application, track and update your application by clicking onto this link. Processing time for a sponsor, spouse or partner, about 12 months. Child varies by country, so it depends which country you are from. Due to COVID-19, we can't provide accurate processing time. The 12 months processing time is how long it usually took us to process a complete application before COVID-19. We have limited capacity to process application. It's taking us longer to send out acknowledgement of receipt, letter or email. You will get an AOR after we receive your application and check that it's complete. See the check application status page to learn how to check your application status. We are processing application during the pandemic. In line with Canada immigration and privacy policy, we may use electronic method to help process application and make decision, including on your application. Method could include computer analytics, automation, and others. We may also use personal information we collect on an application and supporting documents to support electronic processing. This could include research, statistics, evaluating programs and policy, internal audits, compliance, risk management, development, computer analytics, strategy development and reporting. Find out more about how we use electronic system. We will review sponsorship application and return it to you if it's incomplete, fees are missing. If we begin to process your application, we will send you an application number, acknowledgement receipt, assess your eligibility as a sponsor, assess if the person you are sponsoring is eligible for permanent residence. If we refuse you as a sponsor, you can choose to have us continue processing the application for permanent residence for your family members. If you choose to withdraw your application, you won't get $75 Canadian sponsorship fee back. You will get all other fee back. If you want us to continue processing, you won't get any fees back. If you are approved as a sponsor, we will assess the eligibility of the person you want to sponsor. Your family members can link their application to their online account. When we start processing their application, we will send your family members a letter with their application number. After they get this letter, they can link their application to their online account. This way they can communicate with us quickly and securely and get update and messages about their application online. Find out how to create an online account and link an application. So if you click onto this link, you can be able to find out how to create an online account and link an application to this account. You, the sponsor, can link their application for them if you are handling your family member's application and you are designated as their representative. See the top question about linking an application. The people you are sponsoring must send us supporting documents during processing. We will ask the people you are sponsoring to submit their medical exam, police certificate, biometrics. All right, this is the information. I have read it to you. If you live in Quebec, you must do the following steps before we assess the eligibility of your family members. The person you are sponsoring must complete and sign demandee selection permanentee category recruitment application permanent selection family reunification class form and return it to you promptly. You must enclose this form with your undertaking application to Government of Quebec. If the Government of Quebec approves your undertaking application, they will send us information we need to process your family member's permanent residence application. If we approve your family member's permanent residence application, to finish processing their application, your spouse, partner, and children and their dependent who are immigrating to Canada with them will have to send us their passport or copies of their passport. We will let you know which one they should send: 2 photos, proof of payment for the right permanent residence fee. If you haven't sent us already, we will let them know where to send this information. Documents your family members will get. If your family members are outside Australia, we will send them these documents once we finish processing their application. A document confirming they have approved to become Canadian permanent residents. We call this document confirmation of permanent residence. A permanent residence visa, if required. If the person you are sponsoring are from countries whose citizens need a visa to travel to Canada, we will give them permanent resident visa in their passport. We will do this even if they are already in Canada. Once your family member receives these documents, they can travel to Canada. Make sure to check the expiry date of the permanent resident visa and confirmation of permanent residence. Your family member must meet an offer at Canadian port of entry before their document expire. The officer will make the final decision to allow your family member to enter Canada as permanent residents. Find out more about how your family members can prepare for arrival. If your family member are inside Canada, they have to meet an immigration officer to receive their confirmation of permanent residence. We will send them a letter to schedule their appointment and we will let them know what document to bring. The officer will make the final decision to allow your family member to stay in Canada as a permanent resident. If we refuse your family member permanent residence application, we will let you know why we have refused it, how to appeal the decision. If you are sponsoring a spouse, partner, child from outside Canada, you can't appeal our decision if you are sponsoring a spouse, partner who are inside Canada. Track and update your application. During processing, track your application and make sure it's up to date by checking the status of your application, updating your address or other information if necessary, adding or changing your representative or getting access to your family information if necessary, withdrawing your application if desired, paying the right permanent resident fee or requesting a refund. Check the status of your application if you are a sponsor. You can check the status of your application online to find out where we are with your application. Only after you get acknowledgement, receipt, letter or email, you will get an AOR after we received your application and check that it's complete. Due to COVID-19, it's taking us longer, and I have read this information before. If you are being sponsored, you can check your application in 2 ways. If your online account following these steps, get the application number. You will receive this by mail when we have started processing your application. Create an online account, link your application to the account. Online tool, you can also use the client application status online tool, which is updated daily. If your processing time has passed, use the check your application status page to learn how we are processing application during the pandemic. If your application is complex, it may take us longer than normal processing time to process it. Do not contact us about your application status if you don't have an acknowledgement of receipt AOR letter. Due to COVID-19, we cannot provide processing time. So I have read this again before. Keep your information up to date. I have read this before. Don't mail us change for your contact or application information. So you need to fill out the form. Add or change a representative or get access to your family members. So I have read this before. Prepare for arrival. Use ArriveCan to provide mandatory travel information required for entry to Canada. Make sure you are using the newest version of ArriveCan. If you previously submitted your application using an older version of ArriveCan, you must download the latest version and resubmit your information. When your sponsored family members arrive at the port of entry to Canada, they must show the border service officer their confirmation of permanent residence. This is the document we sent when we proved their application. Valid passport or travel document. Permanent residence visa if we issued one, which must be valid. Quebec selection certificate if they are going to live in Quebec. Any other document we issued to them and told you to bring. If your family members are already in Canada, they will have to meet an immigration officer to receive their permanent residence. We will call this a landing interview. We will send them instruction about what documents to bring with them and the time and place for their interview. What happens at the border? The border officer will check their permanent residence visa and confirmation of permanent residence haven't expired. Ask your family members to confirm information that they gave in their application. Your sponsored family members must tell the officer of any funds they are bringing into Canada, including cash, stocks, bond, money order, travel checks. Get more information of the documents your family member need in the interview process when crossing the Canadian border. If satisfied that they meet the requirement to enter Canada, the officer will allow them to enter into Canada as PR. Start the process to mail their PR card to the address and their confirmation of PR. Make sure their Canadian address is correct. Okay, let's see what's next. All right, let's go on to the first page. So sponsor your relative. I have read this information to you guys. So sponsor your spouse, partner, or dependent children. I have given you information about this category. Now I will go on to sponsor your relatives. So about the process, you may be able to sponsor certain relatives to immigrate to Canada under the family class if you are at least 18 years old and a Canadian citizen, person registered in Canada as an Indian under the Canadian Indian Act, or permanent residents of Canada. If you sponsor a relative to come to Canada as a permanent resident, you must support your relative financially when they arrive. All right, I have read that information to you. Who can sponsor? Let's read this. So who you can sponsor? Let's read this. You can only sponsor relatives like a brother, sister, aunt, or uncle in very specific situation. If your family member doesn't meet the criteria below, you can use the Come to Canada tool to find out which program they may be eligible to apply for. So click onto this link and you can be able to find out that what other programs they can qualify for if they do not qualify for this category. Depending on your situation, there are two options for who you can sponsor: orphan brother, sister, nephew, niece, or grandchild. You can sponsor an orphan brother, sister, nephew, niece, or grandchild only if they meet all these conditions. They are related to you by blood or adoption. Both their mother and father passed away. They are under 18 years of age. They are single, not married, or in common law or conjugal relationship. You can't sponsor your brother, sister, nephew, niece, or grandchild if one of their parents is still alive. So you cannot sponsor them if their parents are still alive. No one knows where their parents are. Their parents abandoned them. Someone else other than their parents is taking care of them while one or both their parents are alive. Their parents is in jail or otherwise detained. Other relatives. You may sponsor one relative related by blood or adoption of any age if you meet all these conditions. You, the person who wants to sponsor your relative, don't have a living relative you could sponsor instead, such as spouse, common law partner, conjugal partner, son or daughter, parent, grandparent, orphan brother or sister, orphan nephew and niece, orphan grandchild. You don't have any relatives, aunt or uncle, or any other relative listed above who is Canadian citizen, PR, registered Indian under Indian Act. If the relative you want to sponsor has a spouse, partner, or dependent children who will come to who will come with them to Canada, you must include them on the same sponsorship application. All right. So some examples of who you can sponsor. See the example below to better understand who you can sponsor. Veronica doesn't have a spouse, so I won't read this example to you guys. You just read it in your free time. So who you can't sponsor? You can't sponsor someone who is admissible to Canada. This means they are not allowed to come to Canada. How to apply? There are 2 stages in the process for your eligible relative to become permanent residents. You apply to sponsor your relative. Your family member must apply for permanent residence. You must send both your sponsorship application and the permanent residence application for your relative at the same time. To apply as a sponsor, you must be at least 18 years old, Canadian citizen, person registered in Canada as an Indian under the Indian Act, or permanent residents of Canada. How to apply? This is a very similar process I have read to you before in previous category where you could apply for your spouse, children. So here, when submitting in your application, you will have to provide proof of income. Your relative must state that they will try to support themselves. You must agree in writing to support your relative for a set amount of time, 3 to 20 years. Include all your relatives' dependent children, if any, on your relative's application. Include all their documents listed in the document checklist. Missing information or documents can delay your application. All information in your application must be true. You must tell the truth about your family members, including them all on your application, your marital status, any changes in your case. The people you sponsor must also tell us about each of their close family member. These family members must have a security and criminality check and medical exam. If they don't, the sponsored person won't be able to sponsor them in the future. Helping your relative with their application, I have read this to you before. So now go on to after you apply. After you apply is the same process as I have read to you before with previous category of applying for your spouse and children. All right, guys. So let's go on to the other category, which is sponsor your adopted child. There are 2 processes that you must go through when you adopt a child from another country: the adoption process and the immigration process. The immigration process has 2 parts: the application for sponsorship and the application for permanent residence for the child. After your child arrives in Canada as a PR, you can apply for citizenship on the child's behalf. However, the adoption must be finalized before the child can be granted citizenship. Learn about applying for grant for citizenship for your child. Click onto this link and you will be able to find out about the grant of citizenship. Okay, guys, who can apply? Let's read this. Requirement to sponsor a child. To sponsor a child from another country for adoption, you must be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. If you do not currently reside in Canada, you must do so when the adopted child become PR, lives in Canada, and be at least 18 years old. You may not be eligible to sponsor in some cases, such as if you do not meet the requirement of a previously sponsorship agreement, if you defaulted, or any court order support orders such as alimony or a child support. If you have been convicted of crime, if you do not live in Canada now and do not plan to live full time in Canada when the child become a PR. If you live in Quebec, you must also complete Quebec immigration sponsorship requirement. Not sure which process to use? Read above difference between citizenship and the immigration process for adoption. Requirement for permanent residence. For your child to be eligible for permanent residence status, you must be a Canadian citizen born or naturalize in Canada apply on behalf of adopted child who is under 18 years of age at the time of application. An adopted person who is 18 years of or older at the time of application and was adopted by Canadian citizen born or naturalized in Canada. A legal guardian applying on behalf of an adopted child under 18 years old age at the time of application if the child had at least one Canadian parents born or naturalized in Canada at the time of adoption. A non-Canadian adoptive parents applying on behalf of an adopted child under 18 years old at the time of application if other parents is a Canadian citizen born or naturalized in Canada at the same time of the adoption. Requirement of inter-country adoption. Most inter-country adoption will take place in the child's home country. Each country has different laws and procedure covering adoption by foreigner. For instance, some countries allow adoption outside the child's home country, while others only permit adoption inside the country. Not all countries allow adoption. If you are adopting a child who is related to you, different rules from the province and or the country of region may apply. To immigrate, the immigration process allows two types of adoption of children under 18, depending on the law of child's home country. The inter-country adoption must either be country outside of Canada or to be completed in Canada. For Canadian immigration purpose, all inter-country adoption must be legal in child's home country and in province or territory where you live. And the legal relationship between your adopted child and his or her biological parents meet the requirements of your province or territory, include a home study, create a genuine parents-child relationship between you and the child, be in the best interest of the child, not be primarily to gain permanent residence status for the child in Canada. Children adopted outside Canada may be sponsored to come to Canada if informed consent has been given by both of your child's biological parents if they are living. Your child has been legally adopted outside Australia. The requirements of Hague Convention have been met if they apply. Medical requirement. Adopted children must complete a medical exam before being issued a permanent residence visa. Your province or territory or licensed adoption agency will tell you how and when it will take place. You must also sign a statement that you have obtained information regarding any medical condition the child may have. Inter-country adoption is complex. Other requirements may apply depending on the country from which you are adopting and your home province or territory. Your provincial or territorial government office will be able to tell you about the adoption requirement. How to apply. Adoption are responsibility of the province and territories in Canada. You should contact your provincial or territorial adoption authority for information on eligibility to adopt and the accompanying requirements that must be met. But first you should read all the information in this section to know what to expect. Once the adoption process is in progress and you have received a letter of no objection from the province or territory, you can apply to sponsor your child. After that, you can apply for a permanent residence visa for your child to come to Canada. You may apply for citizenship for the child after he or she arrived in Canada and has permanent residence status. However, the adoption must be finalized before citizenship can be granted. Sponsoring your adopted child. When filling out the sponsorship form, you may leave the name of the child blank if you have not yet been matched with the child. When you apply to sponsor a child for adoption, remember that you are committing yourself to provide a necessary case and support for the child. You are bound to this agreement for 10 years or until the child reaches the age of 25, whichever comes first. If you live in Quebec, you must also meet Quebec immigration sponsorship requirement. Sponsorship application process. There are 3 steps in the application process. Download and print application package. Okay. Pay your application fees, submit your application. Apply for permanent residence status for your child. If your application for sponsorship is accepted, we will inform the Canadian Visa Office that has jurisdiction over the child's home country and send you an application for permanent residence. You can either fill out this application form on the child's behalf or send it to the child's guardian to do so. The completed application form must be sent back to Canadian Visa Office. Use application package to help you complete your application. When your child application is sent to the visa office, it will be reviewed to verify that the child meets the immigration requirement. If the adopted child is not an infant, and visa officer may have to interview the child to make a decision, you must ensure that the visa officer has all the information needed. Make it decision. Your quick response to the request for more information will help avoid unnecessary delays. After you apply your child passport to travel to Canada, you must obtain the child's passport from the child's home country. You must present the passport to Canadian Visa Office serving the child's home country in order for the child to receive permanent residence visa. The visa and the child's passport must be shown to Canadian Border Service officer when the child arrives in Canada. The adoption agency in your province or territory may be able to advise you where to apply to get the child's passport. Make sure to get this information sometime before you plan to bring the child to Canada. Prepare for arrival. Before you travel to Canada, all traveler entering Canada must follow testing and quarantine requirement to keep everyone safe. Under certain condition, you may be exempt from some of these requirements. Find out if you exempt from any testing and quarantine requirement. Your adoptive child permanent residence visa allows her to enter Canada to become PR. When your adopted child arrives in Canada, he or she will be met by an officer from Canadian Border Agency. The child will formally receive permanent residence status in Canada at that point. CBSA officer will ask to see the child passport travel document. Make sure you have them for the child and that they are not packaged in luggage. If you have the documents handy, you can speed up into Canada. If you and your children are traveling without child second's adoptive parents, make sure that you have any document that CBSA officer may require, such as letter of permission for child traveling with only one legal parent. After the child has become a permanent resident, he or she will receive PR. You must provide the child's new address in Canada to Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada to receive permanent residence card. You can expect to receive the card mail about a month later. After your adoptive child become a PR in Canada, you can apply for citizenship on the child's behalf. The health need of adopted child, travel health for adoptive parents and children. Alright guys, these were some of the information about how to sponsor a orphan child or your own orphan child. Now look into the other category. Hello. Alright, so I have read 3 of these information. Now sponsor your parents and grandparents. Let's read this. So if you have submitted the interest to sponsor form 2020 and were invited to apply the 2021 intake, you can sponsor your parents and grandparents to become permanent residents in Canada. If you are invited to apply, there are 2 applications that are submitted: a sponsorship application and permanent residence application. If both application approved, you will sign an agreement called an undertaking that starts on the day the person you are sponsoring and their family members, if these applies, become a PR of Canada. This agreement is discussed under who is eligible to sponsor a parents. Check if you are eligible. You can sponsor your own parents and grandparents if you are invited to apply. You are at least 18, you live in Canada, you are Canadian citizen and PR of Canada, or person registered in Canada as an Indian under the Canadian Indian Act. You have enough money to support your parents, support the people you want to sponsor. To show that you have enough, you will have to provide your proof of income. You may have a spouse or common law partner. This information is very similar to what I have read to you before. Now let's go on to the next one. Who can sponsor? This is very important. You can sponsor your own grandparents and parents related to, I think I have read this before. So in this application, you can include your brothers and sisters, or half brother and sister, or step brother and step sister only if they qualify as dependent children. I have read to you about who the dependent children are. Please go through that again. You must meet the income requirement. I have read this to you before. The people you sponsor must be eligible So they need to fulfill all the medical and police certificate and biometric requirements. So it's all the same almost, which I have read to you before in my other categories of coming to Canada. So let's check the other ones. Check if you are eligible. All right, guys, this is it for today. I hope you find this information really helpful. And from this information, you would be able to apply for yourself as a family member if your relatives are living in Canada as a permanent residence or Canadian citizenship. So make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell down below for all the latest videos, and make sure to comment in all your socials using hashtag Sabizlife. And I will see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.